Yes, I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman, Alfred.
I'm Batman.
I am Batman!
I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
Greetings, Bat Family. Welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Please visit our website, holybatcast.com. It's where you're going to find episodes of this show, videos, merchandise, links, all kinds of random cool stuff. You can also find us all over the internet on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast and you will find us. It's easy to find us. We keep the name consistent. You're welcome. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you want to help support the show, keep it rolling, we are on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a huge thank you to our patrons who keep this show rolling. We could not do it without you. Finally, we're a big part, of the Real Fans podcast network that has a bunch of other shows for your listening pleasure if you get bored, which I'm sure you do. Like, what else you can do at work? Actually work? No, that ain't gonna happen. So check out Real Fans for Real Movies, or RF4RM. It's the original show where we're talking movies past and present. Most recently, we did an episode about all the Super Bowl trailers, so that was fun. You can also check out Disorder, every Disney film, where we're looking at every Disney animated feature in order. Most recently, we talked about Sleeping Beauty. And then we've got the new member of the family, Please Rewind, the RF4RM Retro Show, where Jamie, Tim, and Guy are looking at some old school movies, usually based around an anniversary, but sometimes just because they feel like it. So you can check out all those shows at rf4rm.com, or you can just search for them by name wherever you found this show, because they're all coming from the same place. As always, I'm your host, Andy DiGenova. Hello, and if you'd like to follow me when I'm not talking about Batman, which is almost never, you can do that on Twitter or on Instagram just by searching my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, this episode, we're going to talk a little bit of news, including some news around a Lobo film and that Todd Phillips Joker film, and then, more importantly, we are going to review the new animated Batman film, Batman Gotham by Gaslight. Joining me is my partner in crime. You know him, you love him, you missed him because last week he was sick and he is still recovering, but he is just toughing it out for you guys because he loves you guys so much. So give it up wherever you are, wherever you're sitting. If you're sitting on the train, if you're sitting in your office, I still want you to clap for Jamie Drewley. Jamie, hi.
I'm
clapping for you.
I missed one episode. I get applause. This is craziness.
You know, it's because we support you and we love you and we want you to feel better. And so I hope that somewhere, someone was in church listening to this and they started clapping randomly at the doctor's office, just maybe in bed while their spouse is asleep next to them. They just started clapping for you.
I'm very flattered. But trust me when I say nobody wants me to feel better more than I do. So,
well, thanks again for showing up. Your voice isn't quite as strong as we're used to.
I know
it's the softer side of Jamie.
It is. This is my mellow side today.
Well, hang in there, buddy. We'll get through this together, like we do everything.
Right.
Before we get to the big animated film, we'll talk about a couple news items that hit last week because they were both... I can't decide which was more random. Flip a coin. I don't know. They're both weird. I guess we'll start with the first one, and that is Lobo. So a Lobo film has been in development for years now. I can't even keep track of when they initially said that this was going to happen. And
2009.
Yeah, well, there you go, 2009. And we haven't heard boo about it in forever. I think the last time we heard about it was when The Rock might have been Lobo. Was that it? Or I can't even remember. But it's been a while. I remember
that.
It was when The Rock started teasing a DC role, and that was one of the speculations was maybe he could be Lobo.
I see.
And as we know now, he's Black Adam because we've seen him as Black Adam in so many different movies since then.
Right.
But yeah, Lobo had gone quiet to the point where we all kind of wrote it off and we're like, oh, yeah, I guess that never happened. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue last week, we get news that Michael Bay Yes, that Michael Bay is interested into directing Lobo. And the current script would be way too expensive. It would be a $200 million movie, and they don't want to spend $200 million on a Lobo movie.
Nor should they.
Nor, exactly. That would just be bad business. So I'm shocked WB hasn't greenlit it at this point. Sorry, just being a little catty.
No, I get it. I totally get it. I had this discussion today in another geek group that I'm in, and I listed off like 10 things that I said, if I was in charge of WB, here's what I would do. And like the second or third thing I mentioned was get the damn budgets under control.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed that a lot. That has been one of their biggest stumbling blocks. And so, yeah, I'm surprised they didn't just go, well, 200 and then an extra 50 for reshoots. Go, Michael Bay, go do it.
That would be chaos waiting to happen.
Well,
both in the media and in the film itself, I'm sure.
Just do it. I want to watch the world burn. It's fine.
Now, my understanding is, and I didn't read the article very deeply or anything like that, my understanding is Bay is the one that said that they shouldn't do a $200 million budget for this thing.
And when Michael Bay is the voice of reason, now, geez, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Oh, it's funny because it's true.
I mean, he's right. You should not spend $200 million on a Lobo movie. So yeah, apparently the story is they are rewriting the movie to get it to where the budget could be a little more reasonable, and then Bay wants to do it. So he's not signing on until they get a script where they're ready, but it sounds, I don't want to say it sounds like a done deal, but it sounds pretty real. Like if they can come to these terms that they both want to do it. And for me, I was like, where the hell did this come from? This is so bizarre. And I'll let you react first before I get on my soapbox, but I'm dusting it off as you talk.
My thing with this is, number one, if it's been in quote unquote development for 9 years, I'm not holding my breath that it's going to be put to a priority circumstance now. If I had to take a semi-educated guess on the matter, everybody's seen the success of Deadpool, the reaction to the Deadpool 2 teaser campaign, and all that stuff. And they say, we've got to have a character that we can do this with. Who's going to work out for us best in this matter? And this is probably the first one that popped into somebody's mind. I would say either him or Harley Quinn would appeal to that kind of an audience. But Deadpool has a extreme amount of popularity coming into his movie, whereas Lobo is, I mean, no offense to huge fans of Lobo, but I've always found him to just be kind of an obscure character that shows up once in a while and kind of is good for chuckles or something. I mean, if you read the Justice League of America book, which apparently I'm the last person on the planet that's still reading that book, and I don't want to read it either, so I fully understand people jumping the ship. But that's the only place where he's even active in the DC universe right now that I'm aware of. So I don't know that he's got a built-in enough fan base to get any excitement buzzing around the idea. And I just don't know that this is a character that warrants having his own movie for anywhere north of $100 million. And I'm not even sure that number I would be comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sweet spot is like 75, 80, but Lobo is an intergalactic, not gangster, biker, an intergalactic bounty hunter. So it's tougher to go small unless you just make it Earth-based, and he's just, causing mischief around Detroit. I don't know, like maybe.
Lobo on Earth is completely, I mean, to me anyway, is completely uninteresting. And to make Lobo interesting, you have to have him in space chasing down, big tough aliens that he's going to beat the snot out of and, cuss at him in his own Zarnian way, do that sort of thing. I mean, it's to me, it's not a movie that lends itself to a, $50-60 million type of a budget.
Right. Like Deadpool.
Not that I can envision anyway.
Deadpool made sense because, yeah, you can keep it relatively small, and he's not a character that has to go cosmic or anything, and Lobo's just not that guy. So,
and again, prior to Deadpool coming out, you would walk through a shopping center or a Best Buy or something like that, and you would see a 15 to 25-year-old wearing a Deadpool hoodie or a Deadpool T-shirt or something along those lines. You just tell me the last time you saw Lobo on anybody's apparel anywhere that you went. I'm not sure I've ever seen it, honestly.
I'll take a pass on that. So yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point. It's like, I'm not holding my breath. You know, they announce lots of crap and a lot of it never sees the light of day. So I'm not too worried about it. Michael Bay does not get me excited as it would have maybe 12 years ago. I used to be a big Michael Bay apologist. I really was, all the way up until Transformers 2. And then I got nothing. I can't anymore. But it's not like he's doing Superman. It's Lobo. So if it happens, hell yeah, I'll go see it. You know, like I'll check it out. I hope it pays off. I hope that he makes it work. But it's not a filmmaker that excites me in any way anymore. And it's not a character that I have any real huge affinity for. But because of that, I'm also not that bothered by it, where it's like, oh, if this is what they want to do, sure, you know, good luck to you, and I'll check it out, and I hope it works. But it's not something that I'm going to be counting down the days for. It's not something I'm going to be brokenhearted if it goes quiet again and we never hear another word about it. But sure is kind of where I land, where I'm not like inherently opposed to it, but it's just not. I'm also not fist bumping about it either.
Right. I'm right there with you. I really. Again, to all the fans of the character, I apologize. He's just never been my thing. I don't get the appeal, and it's a movie that, again, I'm with you. I would see the movie, but I don't care. I really don't care. And the Michael Bay thing, I've seen a lot of people raise the point, you know, Bay is actually ideal to make a Lobo movie, and I can't really make an argument against that, but just like you, I could care less about anything Bay does. I mean, his name does not excite me. If anything, it kind of tenses me up because of the Transformers movies. But I don't know. I'm not. There are other ways we could go with DC characters that would perk my ears straight up in the air, and this is certainly not one of them.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. So it's like, we'll wait and see, but not a big deal for me. The other news, speaking of other random DC projects, is we had heard a few months ago about this Elseworlds Joker origin movie being developed by Todd Phillips of Hangover fame and produced by Martin Scorsese. And it was one at that time where we all went, what? And then we were like, well, we'll wait and see. And I think I even said, yeah, I'll be surprised if we ever hear about it again. Because to me, it just seemed like, yeah, sure, you know, develop that. Here's a couple bucks, see what you come up with. But seems like it is still alive. And now we got word that Joaquin Phoenix is in talks to potentially play the Joker. And if you go back to that episode, you'll remember I was not super excited about this project either, especially because it is detached from the DC Films universe or whatever you want to call that. And especially if it's going to be a lot of pre-Joker and not a lot of Joker, and then not Joker versus Batman. There's just, to me, the premise is just not something to get me super excited. But it seems like there is motion, there is life in this thing yet, and Joaquin Phoenix might be the Joker. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that Jared Leto is not the Joker. This is completely separate from the connected universe, and so it's its own random thing. So, Jamie, how do you feel about this little tidbit?
Kind of copy and paste some of the stuff I just said about Lobo and put it over here. I don't want to discount Todd Phillips as a director because I don't know his work. I saw the first Hangover. I frankly hated it. But you know what? I thought the Russo brothers were a horrible idea to do Winter Soldier, and we all know how that worked out. So I could be very much surprised by that. So I won't comment on Todd Phillips any further, but I can tell you his name does not. If this was directed by Scorsese instead of produced by Scorsese, I'd be out there trying to find the date so I could put the timer on my phone already, because that idea would really pique my interest. Joker to me is not very interesting without Batman. I kind of follow that sentiment with you as well. If this was a Scorsese film about Batman and Joker's first meeting or something along those lines, now you've really got me excited. And the premise of these out of continuity films makes sense to me because this is how they're going to get a guy like Joaquin Phoenix. As I recall, Joaquin Phoenix was one of the finalists for Doctor Strange and was basically the gist of it I got is he didn't want to commit to 5 films. Mm-hmm. And that's why he didn't take that part. Versus something like this, he's not going to have to do a multi-picture deal. He's just got to sign on for 1. So you can get the likes of a Scorsese and Joaquin Phoenix for this. So the concept to me makes perfect sense, and I actually like the idea. I just would like to be more interested in the project itself. And frankly, what I know of it thus far, I'm not very interested at all.
Right. No, I mean, and I think Joaquin Phoenix is a really talented actor. I think he's really crazy in and of himself, so that's perfect for the Joker. So I'm okay with that. So I have no problem with him playing the Joker. To me, he seems a little old to be playing pre-Joker Joker. But I don't know, maybe if you clean him up, he can look younger. I don't know, because he usually has facial hair and he's a little more grizzly as himself. So I haven't seen him like clean shaven in a long time. So I don't know, maybe he can still pass for younger. But
didn't I read somewhere that somebody posted in the Real Fans group the other day that he actually is, if he takes the part, would be the second youngest behind Ledger to take this role?
Really? But he's not that young.
No, he's not, but... apparently
weird.
Leto is older than him. It's probably not a very wide margin, I would imagine. But
so he's 43. Joaquin Phoenix is 43, and Leto's like 44. So yeah, I guess technically you're right.
And of course, Nicholson was substantially older. So.
And he was 85. So
I'm not sure about Cesar Romero, but I'm sure he was older than his early 40s when he took the part as well.
But still, like early 40s, like again, that's not the way I think they would have gone for.
That coming into being the Joker at that age is obscure outside of the Burton verse. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know. The good thing about this and Lobo, I guess, is that because I'm not super invested in either of them, and I don't have very high expectations for either of them, it will be very easy to impress me. And so I'm not going in with any sort of, preconceived notions in my head of what it should be or what it better be. So it'll be easy to exceed my expectations, and maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. And that's great. I hope I am. I hope I love them. I hope I love them both.
The stupid lowered expectations theme from Saturday Night Live is playing in my head over and over again now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't expect much, so it's going to be easy to exceed my expectations. So that's kind of nice, right? Because on paper, neither of them thrill me, but that means if your first trailer of this Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix is in this really cool, stylish Gotham, and we get a glimpse of a shadow of a bat, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe they got something here. Maybe they do, because we haven't seen anything, right? It's all just theoretical.
For my money, even if you wanted to do a movie about Joker running from Batman, like the first time that Batman and he encounter each other, and you see everything from Joker's perspective, and you really don't see much of Batman throughout the film. To me, even that is a more enticing idea than what the picture has been painted of so far.
Exactly. No, I completely agree.
But again, it's my same problem with Venom and Spider-Man. I mean, I said right along how much I love Venom. He's one of my favorite villains in the Marvel universe. But Venom without Spider-Man is like one of the world's most uninteresting characters to me. So Joker for me is very much that same line. I mean, I like Joker and all, but without Batman, what is Joker? Mm-hmm. Or without the presence of Batman in his life, what is Joker? I mean, it just, I don't know. It's a really odd idea to me, but clearly somebody likes it somewhere because it's still a cinder in the fireplace over here,
Yeah. And again, maybe they have some amazing take that's going to blow us away. We don't know enough, but again, what I do know is I'm kind of just like, meh, okay, sure. You could certainly do a lot worse than Joaquin Phoenix. I think that's a pretty exciting choice if he takes it, but I'd be more excited if there was no Jared Leto and he was our new Joker. But I like Jared Leto, and now that we're gonna have 2 Jokers, I don't know. The whole thing is still a little weird to me. And my big point, and this was what when I tweeted this out, I was like, what is going on here? Like, of all the DC films that are allegedly in the pipeline, that are allegedly in development, everything that could be moving forward, these are the 2 we get news on? These 2, really?
Yeah, I mean, I would be much more excited if Chris McKay's news panned out stronger on the Nightwing thing.
Right, exactly.
I never did get any clarity on the Josh Gad thing. Gad's pulling people's leg with his response to that, or what that was. I'm sure you saw that, right?
I did, which I thought was pretty awesome. I hope there's fire where that smoke is. I'd be down
I was
for
hoping
that.
the 2 of them were going to break out into a Twitter war, and that was going to be their way of saying that, we got the Penguin versus Nightwing. But, clearly McKay's kind of back. I don't want to say he's backing off, but he's just letting everybody know up front, hey, we're in a process, and we're going to take as long as it needs to be to make it right, which, frankly, I'd much rather have that than a release date and an actor named or any of that other stuff. I'm much more content with the news that they're going to make sure that it's right before they proceed with anything. I like that part of the news. But we got that Deathstroke movie that we heard that initial thing on with, is it Gareth Edwards or Edwards Evans? I don't know which one's
It's
which.
Gareth Evans. Gareth Edwards is Godzilla, your best
Godzilla.
friend.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean,
The visionary Gareth Edwards, who brought us the unparalleled Godzilla.
Really,
And the bona fide classic Rogue One.
I don't have the energy for that discussion.
Sorry, I guess that is mean in your weakened state.
But Deathstroke, Nightwing, Batgirl. I mean, we've got all these things that have been talked about, and these are the 2 that they pull up on for the news. And I don't know.
That's exactly it. Exactly. Like Nightwing news, Batgirl news, Deathstroke news, Titans news, Cyborg news, all of these things, like more Flashpoint news, like Birds of Prey news. There's so many things that like we could get motion on, and these are the 2 where you're like, what? Okay, sure, you do you. So yeah, that's where I am with it. I'm not inherently opposed to either project. It's just they are so low on my priority list that when I hear news of them, I'm like, okay, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see how these things play out more as they develop, but still interesting news, if nothing else. And Michael Bay making a Lobo movie. I mean, come on, that's just freaking weird. Like, if you could go back in time when Armageddon was coming out and go, oh, this guy's going to make Lobo, I'd go, are you crazy? What a world we live in. But fortunately, like, we're always getting new content and sometimes new movies. It wasn't that long ago that we reviewed a new animated movie with Batman, The Brave and the Bold, and Scooby-Doo. And it's only been a few weeks. We've got a new animated Batman movie. This is one that has been very highly anticipated from the fans. It's one that fans have been asking for many years now. We finally got it. So we have an animated version of Gotham by Gaslight. So, Jamie, we're going to take a look at the brand new DC Universe animated film, Elseworlds tale, Batman, Gotham by Gaslight. A lot of people have been wanting to hear our thoughts on this, and so we'll start, I guess, as we usually do. We'll start spoiler-free, then we will give a warning if we start getting into spoiler territory. I was warned, and I didn't realize it until I watched the movie, then I watched the extras. Don't watch the documentary first, because the documentary spoils the entire movie. So make sure you do it in the order you're supposed to. Otherwise, you will get spoiled by the Blu-ray or the digital copy anyway. So we'll start with our spoiler-free reactions, and then we'll give you a warning when we get over the spoiler wall. So, Jamie, what did you think of Batman Gotham by Gaslight?
This is really where I want to see the Scooby-Doo gang show up. I mean, this was a very family-friendly ordeal, and having the Scooby gang in there just would have been an icing on a very sweet cake.
Yeah, it's this one's for the kids. Sometimes you do one for the grown-ups and sometimes for the kids. And this one, just for the kids.
In all seriousness, I really enjoyed the movie. I was warned by many people who do that whole digital thing before the disc came out that it very much strays from the graphic novel, which I just read that a couple of weeks ago for the first time in probably close to 30 years. And it is far different. I mean, that they incorporated so many more characters and more details and such into it. And the twist, if you will, was vastly changed. And we'll get into all that when we get over spoilers. But yes, it was very different, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Would some people like a straight adaptation? Yeah, I suppose they probably would. I think the Gotham by Gaslight book is almost simplistic in its nature, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing either. Just making a straight adaptation movie out of that would have been, number one, it would have been really short.
Yeah, exactly. A straight adaptation would have been about 15 minutes, and they needed to make it 75.
Right, but this provided more depth to it, and I'm not saying that it would improved necessarily. I just think it's enjoyable in its own way as its own thing. If you're not doing apples to apples comparison between the two, I think they kept enough of the idea there, true to spirit, if you will, and that they served it up. I like the addition of the other characters. If there was anything that the book lacked to me, it was characters. There weren't a lot of characters involved in that book. It was basically, Jack, Batman, and a couple of cameos, more or less. Anyway, I like the incorporation of the other DC characters in there. Even if some were extended cameos of their own, like Ivy, for example. I thought it was really well done. I thought it was really well thought out. It has a couple of issues that, again, we'll get to when we get over spoilers, but overall, I found it really enjoyable. I've watched it twice, and I frankly liked it better the second time, even knowing what the quote-unquote twist was coming up. So,
yeah, like you, I watched it twice. I've said it in other episodes when we review these animated films, is I always feel like these play better the second time, and I don't know why that is. But I find that to be true. And in this case, it was true again. The first time I watched it, I thought it was fine. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just was like, yeah, it was all right. And I watched it the second time, and I enjoyed it more. For some reason, I don't know why that is. I just feel like the threads come together a little bit better on a second viewing. And I wanted to see it a second time anyway. I mean, so I could speak to it in more detail on this episode. But also, knowing where things end up in the film, I wanted to make sure it all added up, and I think it does. So yeah, I walked away having enjoyed it. I still don't quite love it. I have some issues with it, but to your point, it is not the graphic novel at all. It is 95% different from the graphic novel. The only thing it shares is a name and the idea that it is Batman versus Jack the Ripper. And I think that's it.
There's a few other small details.
There's one main plot point that is from the book. But even most of the plot is completely different.
Yeah.
There's very little of the graphic novel in this movie, which, again, is fine. I kind of like that because if you're just going to do the straight up adaptation, it's fun, but where everything is going. And so, you lose a little bit of the excitement that way. And I like the idea of taking that same premise, taking some of the smaller parts and pieces, and then expanding on it and putting it together in a different way to give us something that is fresh and new and not just a straight up adaptation. I think that's cool. I like that about it. They were very honest in the documentary about, the initial story's really short, and Bruce Timm said this, and without a hint of irony, but he said, much like The Killing Joke, you had to add extra material to flesh it out. And it got me thinking, and I was like, yeah, you know what? This is how you flesh that out in a successful way, as opposed to what they did with The Killing Joke, where they added a prologue that meant nothing and amounted to nothing. And this one, all of that extra material was woven throughout the entire film, and so it still all feels like part of the same whole. It feels like part of the same piece. And so I have to give a lot of credit to that, of taking the basic premise and understanding that we got to get 75 minutes. A lot has changed since that graphic novel was published, and here's how we can just make our own thing based on that same idea. So I really liked that about it. I loved the mood of it. I liked the Elseworlds idea of this, shall we say, steampunk Batman versus Jack the Ripper. Like, I just think that's a really cool premise anyway, and so I like seeing a different approach to it. I got to tell you, Jamie, I almost wanted to hold on to this until Halloween.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
It crossed my mind where I was, because every year we're scraping for Halloween content. I was like, maybe Gotham by Gaslight. Now that I've seen it, not as much as maybe I thought before I saw it, because yeah, you've got Batman versus Jack the Ripper in these foggy, creepy streets. Like, it could have felt Halloween-y. In the end, it doesn't feel super Halloween-y, so it's okay. And plus, people demand the review now, so what are we going to do? But it did cross my mind. I thought about it.
Now, when I picked up a copy of the book several months back at my comic book shop, and as he was digging through the box to pull it out for me, he said, "Do you want the sequel too?" I was like, "There's a sequel?" I had no idea there's a sequel. And it's like Master of the Future or something like that is the name of the sequel book.
Yeah.
And watching the documentary after I watched the film the second time, and they apparently lifted quite a bit. Now, I haven't read that one yet. They apparently lifted quite a bit from Master of the Future and incorporated it into this one as well. So I'll be curious to actually go read that book now and see exactly what they did pull, other than some set design kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I read Gotham by Gaslight years and years ago, but I hadn't revisited it in forever. And so when I watched the movie, I was really coming in fresh, because basically what I remembered about Gotham by Gaslight was some of the imagery and that I liked it. I remembered no details. I didn't even remember who Jack the Ripper was in the book. So going into the movie, I wasn't comparing it to the book. I just was watching it as its own thing. Then I went out of town this past weekend, and so I had some lazy time just laying around a cabin, and I had bought Gotham by Gaslight digitally a few months ago, and so I was like, oh, great, I'll read it so I can compare it to the movie. And number one, as I read it and it ended, I was like, oh, is it over already? That's weird. That doesn't make sense. But again, I forgot how short it was. And then right after it in the same book is the sequel, Master of the Future. And so I read them both. I read them both back to back. And yeah, there were elements from Master of the Future or Master of Tomorrow. Is it Master of Tomorrow?
Is it? Okay.
I don't know. It's Master of Tomorrow.
It's sitting right here. Let me pick it up.
Or Master of the Future.
Master of the Future.
Either way, don't at me. And yeah, so like there were some ideas that were lifted from Master of the Future, but not so much. Just basically, and this was in the trailer, so it's not really a spoiler, is the idea of the Gotham World's Fair. That's from Master of the Future.
And the blimp was too.
And the blimp. Those were kind of the two pieces that were. Now, see,
I had assumed the blimp was some kind of a nod to the animated series. I didn't realize it was a nod to another book.
Yeah. But really, that's it. So even then, like, they didn't borrow any story from Master of the Future. They just thought, oh, what about the World's Fair? That's a great way, great thing to incorporate, and we can have a lot of fun with that. So it was interesting because I watched the movie on its own, then I read the book and I could compare it, and then I watched the movie again. And so I hope the two don't, mix in my brain. But overall, like, I like the movie. My biggest complaint, well, I have two big complaints. One is not spoilery, and I think it's probably best to get it out there to manage people's expectations. The background animation in this movie is beautiful. The character designs and the character animation is really lacking.
See, I like the character designs. What I didn't like is there's a lot of funky motion for the characters as they kind of move around throughout the film.
Some of them,
what I noticed,
some of them looked okay. Like I thought Selena looked amazing. She looked great, but everyone else looked so kind of boiled down to minimal detail that it looked cheap. Like the Robins looked like something out of a cheap cartoon and not one of these DC animated movies. Bruce Wayne looked fine. Batman looked crappy. I hated the way Batman looked. And that sucks for a Batman fan who's watching a Batman movie. Batman should look awesome, and he looked weird. He had this huge Buzz Lightyear jaw, and it was awful. And I don't know why they did that, because if you look at Batman in this movie next to Bruce Wayne in this movie, it doesn't even look like the same jaw. For some reason, when he puts on the cowl, his jaw grows 3 sizes that day, like the Grinch's heart.
That's how they throw off people from figuring out it's him.
I guess so. But like, I had seen it in the trailers and I was like, oh God, I hope it's just in that shot that Batman looks like that. But no, he looks like that through the whole thing, and he doesn't look great. So the characters themselves, I just thought were so, they just look cheap. And that really took away from my enjoyment of the film, because part of the appeal of Gotham by Gaslight is how cool these things look and how that creates the mood and the atmosphere of the piece. And I think they did a great job, again, with the environments, but they did a bad job with many of the characters. Again, not all, but many, and especially Batman, who should be the coolest one. So that's one of my big complaints about it. I just wish... I wish the character design was stronger. The other piece, and I'll wait for spoilers, is my other complaint. But overall, I enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it more the second time. I really didn't take issue with them mixing it up and doing their own thing with it. In fact, I think that's what I liked about it. I liked that it wasn't just something I already knew what I was getting. I thought that was neat. I thought the incorporating of other characters was really cool. I think some of it was more successful than others. But I think that the most successful instance is Selena. Selena, the way they wrote her into the story is fantastic, and I love it. So I think that's a huge plus to it too. So for me, this is an above average installment in the DC animated movies, but for me, it's not quite a home run.
That's fair. I think we're more or less on the same page. I think I might have liked it just a touch better, but I think we're in the same ballpark anyhow.
Yeah, and again, like if you'd talked to me after the first viewing, I liked it even less. So our pal Brendan Lowe, he messaged me and he was like, "What'd you think of Gotham by Gaslight?" And I was like, "It was fine." And he was like, "Oh, I really liked it." I'm like, "It was okay." And then I watched it again.
10 or 15 minutes into my first viewing, I was like, "Oh man, we've got another one of these." Ugh. And then it just kind of picked up. I mean, what really caught my attention the first watch was the action, because this thing does not short you on the action sequences, which I always appreciate myself.
No, and I agree with you. I think some of the best parts are Batman versus Jack the Ripper. The action animation is really good. And
Right.
I think that for a movie about Batman versus Jack the Ripper, this really delivers on that multiple times throughout the film. And so I think that was really successful.
And the fact that, and we can get into details later on, but the fact that they made the Ripper virtually an equal to him physically and mentally was a very nice touch that I don't think that the book carried.
Right. No, I like that too. I like that he was a true threat to Batman.
Right. And I want to say this before we get over the spoiler wall. I'm a huge fan of Jennifer Carpenter. I was a big Dexter fan, so I always loved her on that show. I think she was great, even though she was limited on her screen time in Brawl in Cell Block 99. I think she's a very underrated actress. So I was beside myself. I did not know going in until I saw her name in the opening credits that Jennifer Carpenter was voicing one of the characters here. And I didn't even recognize her voice as Selena. And I think she did an excellent job with it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, was she in Quarantine?
Yes.
Is that it? Yeah, that's how I knew her, because I never watched Dexter. But yeah, so no, I think
Dexter's
she did great.
But stop after season 3 because that's where it peaks.
Yeah, that's kind of what I heard. No, I thought she was great. And Bruce Greenwood is one of my favorite Batman voices. I love him. I think he's so good, and he's great in this, too.
Yeah, I think he did a really good job.
So, yeah, I mean, those are good points. I thought, again, the Bruce and Selina relationship here is really great. It's a highlight in the movie. I think the action is a highlight of the movie. I think that, again, some of the atmosphere is a highlight of the movie. I think there are some story issues that are drawbacks in the movie. I think that there's some missed opportunities that are drawbacks. I'm keeping it vague for now. And again, some of the animation is a drawback. So that's why for me it's not like this unqualified success. For me it's just an above average watch.
Yeah, again, I think we're in the same ballpark.
Yeah. I remember liking the music too. I think the music was pretty good.
I thought the music was quite good, especially
Yeah.
the themes that carried more of that Victorian Gothic kind of a tone to it. I thought were really solid.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Sure.
that kind of seemed to drift away as the movie went along, but I really enjoyed it as it was there, and I think it was overall good too. Those are the parts I appreciated the most.
Right. Agreed. So yeah, we both enjoyed Gotham by Gaslight. I still think that you should add it to your collection out there. I think it's worth the purchase. It's again, go in with eyes wide open. It is not a straight up adaptation of the graphic novel. In fact, it is barely an adaptation of the graphic novel. But if you want to see someone else's take on the same premise, this is exactly what it is. And it's something where, because Gotham by Gaslight was the first Elseworlds, they had nothing to learn from in the past, and so it was pretty much just Batman and Bruce Wayne, and they didn't incorporate a lot of the rest of Batman's world. Whereas here, now many years have passed, and they're like, oh, well, let's have fun and incorporate a lot of Batman's world into this, and that's what they did, and that's part of the fun too. So it's cool to have it as a companion to the graphic novel. So I don't think it is necessarily better or worse. Of course, the identity of Jack has changed, which they were very upfront about. I don't think that's a spoiler either. And so I'd be interested to hear your preference, Jamie, as far as like which one you think works better. Because it's interesting that they got to go back and make a change that drastic. But anyway, I think we want to talk about this in spoilers. So if you haven't picked it up or you haven't watched it, beware. We're going to start talking spoilers. And this is a movie that can be spoiled because so much of it hinges on who's Jack the Ripper. And he's someone. So that's something you gotta be wary of. And again, don't watch the documentary because they just tell you straight up. So anyway, if you don't want spoilers, pause it, go check out the movie, come back. If you don't care about spoilers, well, look at you. You're so postmodern. You don't care about spoilers. You're just going to listen. Good on you. You're awesome. But here we go. Spoiler time. So the one thing I said, one of my big complaints was I felt like some of the animation was lacking, and it's not even the animation. It was literally just the way the characters looked. I think they moved fine. It was the way they looked, especially the Robins, especially Batman, and some of the other ones too, where I'm like, God, like you just took out all detail and it just, ugh. But my other complaint, and this again, I was kind of spoilery, kind of not, goes back to incorporating other Batman characters. And I think some of them are incorporated great. Like I said, Selina Kyle and the way she factors into this movie and the way she becomes an important linchpin for the entire story. I love that. I think that was so well done. But some of them I thought were less successful. When I was messaging Brendan, he goes, oh, I bet you loved that they incorporated the 3 Robins. And I said, you know what? I loved the idea, but they didn't matter. They were pointless, so I didn't care. And that is my other complaint, is like some of those little cameos are cute, but they didn't amount to anything. So I was like, oh, well, okay, great. Like you gave me some name drops. That's nice, but why bother? And the Robins were a perfect example. I'm like, oh yeah, I love that Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and Tim Drake are all there, but they never amount to anything. And I was really hoping that the movie would push it further and give us a steampunk Robin. give us a steampunk Two-Face. Give us a steampunk Catwoman. Like, I wanted them to go further. If they were already gonna push the premise and start including all these other characters, I just wanted them to push it further. And they didn't. Maybe if they get a sequel, they will get a chance to do that. I'd still happily buy a sequel. But in this one, a lot of those intros never amounted to anything, so I just was kind of disappointed.
I get where you're coming from completely. I don't necessarily agree with you, though. And that's only because this would have been just too busy of a film to bring in a real Robin, a real Two-Face, a real Catwoman. I think that just would have made it overly cluttered.
Oh, I'm sure. And it wouldn't have to have been all of them. I guess it's just examples. Because, like, Harvey didn't amount to much other than a red herring.
Exactly.
And that's fine, except they gave him a pretty shitty motivation to be a red herring, where all of a sudden he just turns on Bruce, and you're like, whoa, okay, I guess Harvey's our bad guy. And it's like, oh, no, he was just mad at you because Selina, I guess?
Yeah.
And it was really weak. And I was like, okay, if you're going to have Harvey turn on him, you better give me a better reason than that. And they didn't.
They just fleshed that out. They could have taken 5 minutes and fleshed that out a little bit better.
You didn't even need 5 minutes. You needed 5 lines. Like, like it was so half baked of like, oh, we want to give you more suspects. And Harvey seemed an obvious suspect. And especially when he turns on Bruce on a dime, you go, oh, there's more going on here. And then they don't really do anything with it. They just kind of abandon it. They have Harvey never talks to Bruce again and basically just says to Selina, oh, so you just moved on to another guy. And so you were led to assume, oh, okay, so he's trying to frame his friend because Selina liked him.
Yeah, it's petty.
It's, I was just like, I'm not buying it. Like, you got to give me more than that. But they just wanted to set up another suspect. And I guess that that's going back to the big mystery, right? Jack the Ripper. Now, in the book,
I've seen a lot of people, through the Twitterverse and whatnot, complain that it was poorly done as far as who that Jack the Ripper was in actuality, and they said it was basically too easy to figure out. And I get where they're coming from, and I agree. But you know what? The Gotham by Gaslight book, it's really freaking easy to figure it out too.
Well, okay, so that was kind of where I was going with this, is in the book, you pretty much only have one suspect. And that's who it is. So you're like, oh, okay. Well, I assumed it was that random dude I met at the beginning because why else would I meet him? He means nothing. They just introduced a new character because, well, he's probably going to be Jack the Ripper. And in this one, I liked it better because they did give us multiple credible suspects.
There is a moment in the film where, to me, it became very. I mean, I'd always kind of suspected that it had to be between two people, and one of them they were trying too hard to get you to believe. So in my case, I always say, when they're pushing that hard for me to think that it's this guy, it almost has to be the other one. Mm-hmm. So that's why I wound up thinking that. I mean, we're over the wall anyway, but right. There's a point where, I mean. People, it's your fault if you came over this wall and you didn't want to hear this. I'm sorry. There's a point where Gordon is not with the police, and the Ripper and Batman are fighting. I think it was the blimp incident,
which is an amazing action sequence, by the way.
Fantastic.
It's probably my favorite sequence in the film. But anyway, go ahead.
I think they were all. I think the meat factory or the meat packing plant or whatever it was, the butcher plant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought that. They all the 3 major action sequences I thought were fantastic. But anyway, we'll come back.
Yeah.
But there's a point after that blimp thing where Gordon just all of a sudden shows up. And to me at that point, it became painfully obvious that it couldn't be anybody but him. Hmm. And I thought to myself, maybe they're just being really clever and doing that just so I think that. But at that point, it just didn't make sense for it to be anybody else because the descriptions there of him being 6'3", 250 pounds, trained fighter, smart guy, knows his stuff. I mean, that's none of this matches Harvey at all. So unless he's wearing stilts and a fat suit or something like that when he's out there doing this, it couldn't be anybody but Gordon at that point. And I was okay with that. I wasn't figuring I was going to be blown away by who the Ripper character was. The only thing they could have done to make the Ripper shock me, and I thought from the beginning that everybody's saying this is so different from the book, I thought to myself, what if Batman actually is going to be the Ripper in this one?
Oh.
But they made that, you know, with all the fights between the two, they would have had to pull out tension, and I would have had to kill somebody for that.
Yeah, it wouldn't have made a lot of sense.
Yeah, but so I mean, as far as great mysteries, this is not one of them. But just the same, I don't think that really detracted from my enjoyment nor the point of the film. Now, I get people saying that they didn't like doing that to Gordon's character or whatnot. I get that. I'm with you on that. But at the same time, that's one hell of a thing to do. And if you want to throw somebody off the trail, is make it Batman, one of Batman's closest allies. Mm-hmm. Because you wouldn't suspect that necessarily.
Right. Well, and I think that I've seen a little bit of that too, but I'm like, well, if you want to do that, this is the place you can. It's an Elseworlds.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
It's not like we ever have to see it again.
Exactly. So within this alternate version, I think it's fine. Again, to me, it was not as obvious as the book, so I appreciated that, because I didn't, when Gordon joins the cops after that big chase, I didn't honestly think twice about it, because, you know, there are cops on patrol. It's not like the commissioner's with them every step of the way. I didn't think twice. And then when I saw Harvey turn, I was like, oh, okay, I guess maybe it's Harvey. And then I realized, I think it was once they showed up, or I think it was when Selena showed up to talk to Gordon, and it's like, oh, he's not here. I went, oh, okay, okay, got it. So it took me a little longer to catch on, but I was okay with it, because again, it's not like this is Jim Gordon in continuity, losing his shit and going off and butchering people. It's, you know, it's this Elseworlds Gotham by Gaslight version, and for that I was willing to go with it. And I watched it again to see if it held up, and I thought it played even better the second time, because I was looking for it. But I liked the idea of, you know, this guy who has dedicated his blood, sweat, and tears to cleaning up Gotham, finally going over the edge and realizing the only way to clean up Gotham is to start killing the trash around town. Like, I found that a more credible motive than what you get in the book. And it's still crazy, of course, because he's got to be. He's Jack the Ripper. But you're like, okay, like, he thinks, like, he is so committed to cleaning up the city that even means killing those that he deems to be less. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm willing to go with that. That's okay with me. The other thing I watched again was, you know, the reveal of Barbara's burnt face. Is they always keep the left side of her face obscured or turned away from the camera throughout the entire movie. Mm-hmm. And that was something I was watching for too. I was like, wait a minute, like, I'm pretty sure we saw her whole face. And yeah, you see most of it, but they keep it just enough turned away that when the reveal happens, it's still, you can still buy it.
Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, and I don't want to go down a huge rabbit hole with it or anything, but watching it the second time, did you see more clues? Were you more sensitive to the ideas that they were pointing at Gordon as being the Ripper?
Well, I definitely picked up more on what you mentioned as far as like his size. So that was something that made more of an impact the second time. And then when the other moment you mentioned where he joins the chase once they're just chasing Batman, then I went, oh, he wasn't there. Okay. Like, so yeah, there were things like that I picked up on, but I don't think they tipped their hands very much throughout.
No, they didn't. I mean, it was more or less subtle, but if you watch it the second time, like when Batman shows up in his backyard in the morning.
Right. And
he's standing out there and he freaks him out because he comes out of that shadow of the tree, which I love that shot, by the way. I think that was great. But he tells him, you know, this is my sanctuary. Don't you dare come back here again. And I mean, he's hostile about this. Don't come back to my house.
Right.
Because the house is where all of his bad doings are, you know, the hidden room under the stairs and the wife with the scarred face and whatnot. I mean, all of his things that'll give him away are there. So he certainly doesn't want his adversary being anywhere near that mess, or the nightmare that he has about Barbara being killed by the Ripper, and his reaction to that as he wakes up. There were just things like that throughout that I picked up on the second time, as saying, yes, it was there the entire time, even before the reveal that he's protective of this secret that he's got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe a little clumsy in an area or two, but
no, that makes sense. Here's a story thing that to me doesn't make any sense. Jack the Ripper did most of his killing in London, and there's no acknowledgement that Jim Gordon used to live in London.
And see, that's the other thing that they certainly changed. In the book, it's Bruce was in London, the Ripper was in London.
Exactly, like in the Bruce, they made such a big thing about the Ripper going from London to Gotham, and here the Ripper only exists in Gotham, and I'm like, And
I kind of get that. I mean, why expand that part of the story unnecessarily at that point?
Well, because Jack the Ripper is famous for killing a lot of people in London.
I understand that, but we're talking about a fictional story involving a real character here, so that part doesn't bother me, because at that point you would have to establish that Gordon and Bruce were both in London, and I mean at least Gordon was, and that, I mean, talk about a dead giveaway.
Well, and that's part of what makes the identity of the Ripper in the book so obvious, is because they're coming from London to Gotham together. And you're right, it's a dead giveaway, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, but you're asking us to ignore that Jack the Ripper was in London? It's, I don't know. To me, I'm like, no, you're hoping we won't ask the question.
Until the second time I watched it, honestly.
Yeah.
So I guess credit to them for writing it well enough where I didn't even run into the consideration, oh yeah, they never said he came from London over to here. He's only just been in Gotham this whole time. So I was okay with that change. I was fine with that.
Yeah.
Historically accurate, it's not, but
yeah, I thought it was a bit of a stretch. They hope we don't ask, but I'm asking, damn it.
Well, I mean, if we want to ask questions, I'll jump straight to my worst mind-boggling thing about this entire film, but I don't want to jump straight to the end. So yeah, the action sequences in the meatpacking plant, as he's coming up on Selena, and she opens up the dress and pulls out the whip, and I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. I mean, we all know I'm not the biggest Catwoman fan, but I thought that was really well done. I thought the fact that she held her own pretty well was pretty respectable.
Well, I loved that. Yeah, I loved that she remained strong throughout, and even at the end, during the climax, when she gets drugged, she still continues to fight, and I loved that.
Yeah,
I thought that was awesome.
They did a very nice job with her character throughout the film, I think. But that action sequence in the meat plant, I was like, oh, okay, well, she's proven to be tough enough for him. When Batman shows up, this is going to be a quick thing, and he's going to have to break out of there in a hurry. And all of a sudden, he's toe to toe with Batman, and he's matching him, this blow for that blow. I thought that was really impressive. I was really taken back the first time I watched it that, they're making him a physical opponent for Batman that can stand his own and actually give Batman problems. Mm-hmm. And of course that goes on later with the blimp sequence and the Ferris wheel sequence at the end, which again, I think all were amazing. There, in particular, I want to call it out so I don't forget it. There's a shot where they're fighting on top of the blimp with the full moon in the background, and it almost silhouettes them just for a few seconds.
You should see the tweet I just sent out.
Oh?
Because I literally picked that shot.
Oh, I love that shot so much.
For the tweet that we're recording. So I read your mind.
Apparently so. That's quite possibly my favorite shot in the entire film, actually. So.
Well, perfect. We're so in sync. The reason I think that center set piece is my favorite is because it's like that great chase and fight, and then leads to Batman being pursued by the cops. It's actually kind of reminiscent of Mask of the Phantasm now that I think about it, of the middle of that movie where Batman and Phantasm clash, Phantasm disappears, Batman's now on the run from the cops, and gets picked up by Andrea Beaumont in the car and driven to safety. Here it's Selena in the stagecoach and gets driven to safety.
Interesting. I didn't piece that together until you just said it.
Yeah, very similar. But I love that. And I also love that prior to that, you've got Jack the Ripper taking on Hugo Strange. That was the other candidate, suspect. That was the other suspect that I was forgetting. I was like, wait, there was more than just Dent and Gordon. There was someone else. Oh, Hugo Strange. Like that, until halfway through the movie, he was a credible suspect as well.
And can we just mention real quick that is quite possibly, okay, not quite possibly, is definitely the creepiest rendition of Arkham Asylum I've ever seen in my life.
God.
I got the nastiest case of the shivers watching that.
Yeah, so creepy. But then when Jack the Ripper puts on that mask in Hugo Strange's office, I love the look of Jack the Ripper with the top hat and the coat, but then that very creepy mask. I loved that for that entire chase.
Yeah, I thought that was really well done too.
And before you say like, oh yeah, of course Hugo Strange isn't 6'3" and 250 pounds, but like to me, that wasn't a big deal because I was like, well, you can wear lifts, you can bulk, like you can wear padding to conceal your identity. So I just thought, oh, everybody's still on the table.
See, the only viable way I could see Hugo Strange being involved is if it was one of the inmates of the asylum that he was sending out to do this under brainwash or duress and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I could see that because, you had the one that was like bagged inside of that hole, which still, that's just nasty just talking about it. It could have been like that person being sent out under hypnotism and whatnot. I could have seen that, but Strange himself, I never bought that for a second.
Well, to me, it seemed too obvious because he was already creepy. He's always creepy, so it just seems a little too on the nose. But I thought that he was still put in there as another red herring. Mm-hmm. And then he gets ripped apart by his own inmates, which is pretty damn creepy in and of itself. And
that's another one of those well done in the fact that they didn't get too graphic with that. They let your mind kind of do it for you.
Right.
And that played out really well.
The scene of Jack the Ripper just continuously stabbing Poison Ivy, ooh, that was painful to watch.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
That was, right at the beginning. So that was the moment where you said, okay, we know what we're in for now.
Right. And this is another R-rated one.
This one?
Yeah, this is another R-rated animated movie.
This one earned it for the right reasons. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, no, I would agree. But yeah, we've had a few now. And to the point where it's not even news anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know watching it.
Yeah, I don't think I figured out until I picked up the Blu-ray and looked on the back and I went, oh, well, I'll be damned, this one's R. And you see why. From the poor brutal murder of poor Poison Ivy, which made me very sad. But I was like, okay, like that's cool. Like that's a fun cameo to be the first victim instead of just some nameless girl. You make it Poison Ivy. Okay, that's kind of cool. But man, it's brutal to watch. And then Leslie Tompkins as Sister Leslie. That's rough too.
That was really rough, but I loved her character in the film. As much as they toyed around with the ideas of making the characters so different in the film from what we know them as, most of them I thought were fairly true to the character themselves. Like even with the Robins, Dick is clearly the leader, Jason's the hothead, and Tim is the shy, reserved one, if you will. I guess is how I read into that. Mm-hmm. Ivy, she wasn't given a lot to do with her character, but kind of a seductress, by more of her looks than by her powers in this case. Leslie being the one that kind of looks after Bruce, has known him forever, not afraid to stand up and be in his face about things, but just in a different sense in that she runs this orphanage instead of, like a clinic downtown. So I thought they did it well, even with the limited use of the characters, in staying true while being completely different.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think the Sister Leslie was a perfect, a really smart addition as well. And I loved how she became connective tissue between Bruce and between the Robins and between Selina. I thought that was really good writing to connect them all that way. And then when she goes up against the Ripper and she's just like, I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to lose it, but I forgive you. And I was like, wow, like there's a way to go out.
That was strength.
Yeah.
Strength.
It was great. So I really loved that. And to go back to Selina, again, I loved Selina in this movie. And that's why, like, they set her up so well that, like, I mean, the way that the trajectory of the story went, it wouldn't have made sense for her to suit up at the end or anything, but it could have gone in a different trajectory where she could have. It's just how they chose to wrote it.
The thing that I appreciated the most about her, and again, this ties into what I was just saying and how this is relative to the characters as we know them, even though they're changed. She had no use for a man.
Right. She wasn't there for Bruce.
She took on a man for the sake of she wanted one, not because she needed one. She was independently wealthy. She owned her own company, this burlesque company, whatever you want to call it. She clearly could handle herself physically and didn't need anybody's watchful protection from anything. I mean, she was the very definition of independent woman, which was almost unheard of during that time frame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I love that. I love that she's out after the Ripper on her own, despite what the police are doing, despite what Batman is doing. She's taken matters into her own hands, and she never lets go of that. I love that about it. But I loved how they wrote her backstory. I thought it was so clever, is that she came from the circus. She was a lion tamer, or not, a tiger tamer, I guess. So it brings in the whole cat motif, and it explains why she's so good with the whip. I just was like, oh, that's really smart. That's a great backstory for why she's good at what she does, why she's a performer, and why she's independent. Like, I thought that was really well done.
Agreed.
So yeah, I loved her. I got a little annoyed, and it's stupid, but like at the end when she was wearing the hat and it had like the two flowers sticking up like cat ears, I was like, I kept looking at those instead of watching the movie. It was distracting to me.
I didn't even notice it. I'll have to.
Oh yeah, like for the whole finale of the movie, she's wearing this hat with flowers on them, but two of the flowers stick up like cat ears.
That got right by me.
Well, next time you watch it, keep an eye out for it. But I was like, just put on a cat mask and get over with. I don't need your flower cat ears. That was the other thing I was going to say, is the only other thing that I think was really directly lifted from the novel was Bruce Wayne being framed as Jack the Ripper.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Like that was the one other story element.
Issue with the film too.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so it's jumping to the end, but we're deep enough into it now. The Ferris wheel burns down, the World's Fair burns down, the Robins and Alfred and Selina and Bruce are all riding away in the carriage. And credits. Is nobody going to notice the fact that Bruce Wayne was missing from jail when all this happened? Are they going to go put him back in his jail cell now so he can be released properly, legally?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what they're going to do.
Okay. I almost believe that.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like ending it where they did allows them to be like, oh, don't worry about all that. That's all just details that you don't have to worry about.
I know. It drove me crazy because I thought you guys did a pretty solid job throughout this film, and then you're just going to leave it like that, where like nobody's going to care that this guy's missing from jail all of a sudden. I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I mean, they've got enough evidence on Gordon that they can clear Bruce's name, but you're right. Like, they got to get Bruce back in jail, otherwise he's gonna.
Now, as I recall in the book, Alfred switched places with him in the cell, so that they didn't think anybody was missing. Am I incorrect in that remembrance, or?
I can't remember. I'd have to look back.
I think that's what happened.
I'll trust you.
I loved Alfred in this too.
Yeah, me too. I also loved, and they set it up at the beginning, is that like, oh, he's not in Wayne Manor, he's in the townhouse downtown, which I thought was interesting. I don't know why you needed to make that distinction, but they did. But instead of having the Batcave behind the clock were steps up to like the Belfry, Bat in the Belfry. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I assumed and there's no basis for this other than this is just how I took it, that he didn't stay in the manor because it was too far outside of the city limits. So it would have taken him so long to get in there to react to something. He wanted to be like in the middle of the crap when it went down with the Ripper or whatnot. Mm-hmm. He just wanted easier access to be able to do it because it's not like he could hop in the Batmobile and come into town, you know?
Right. Yeah.
The motorcycle thing was a little strange to me too.
That's kind of cool. I kind of like that.
It was fine. It just
different.
Yeah, definitely different.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. I thought Alfred was great in it. Again, very much maintaining that same relationship. I liked the idea of Alfred taking the Robins under his wing. That
was where the Robins were best in this. When they first showed up and toward the end when they were assisting, that was all whatever. I could have cared less. But Alfred interacting with them and showing them the compassion of, first of all, he knew that he was being pickpocketed and he grabs him with that umbrella and hooks him around, which I thought was really cool how he did that. Mm-hmm. And then, excuse me, they basically said, don't call the police. We're just trying to get some money for food. We're hungry. We haven't eaten for a while. So knock him around a little bit if it'll make you feel better, but don't call the cops. And so, Alfred shows that heart and compassion that he always does. He's like, I've got some odd jobs, come to this address, hands him a card and says, you'll never leave here hungry. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really nice interaction between him and them.
Right. No, I agree with you. I thought that was really nice too. So yeah, I liked Alfred as well.
Trying to think if there's some other character I wanted to bring into this.
What about the little cameo of Cyrus Gold?
The guy in the prison, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to embarrass myself now. Who the hell is Cyrus Gold?
Oh, Jamie. You're going to get fired. You're going to get yourself fired.
Yeah,
and it's not going to be me that does it. It's going to be like all the scary listeners out there.
Okay. Whatever.
That is Solomon Grundy.
It is?
Yeah. That is Solomon Grundy pre-Grundy. Cyrus Gold.
I didn't know there was a pre-Grundy.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about that dude on Biff or whatever the hell his name is on Gotham.
Well, that was the whole thing on Gotham is that, oh shit, what the hell was his name?
Butch.
Thank you, Butch. You find out Butch's real name was Cyrus Gold.
Okay. I did. I don't know enough about Grundy's backstory to say that.
You're supposed to love Grundy.
I think he's really cool, and
he's
I
your guy.
love the way he looks and everything. But it's not like I'm a historian on the subject.
I know. Anyway, but so yes, there was a little Grundy name drop there, and then we'll get letters if we don't mention the name drop of Johnny Gobbs.
Oh, I had that down in my notes to mention that, and I skipped right over it.
After what happened to Johnny Gobbs. Johnny Gobbs got ripped and took a walk off the roof. No big loss.
Now I got to open my notes and see if there's anything else I missed. Damn it. That's the first thing on my note. I put Johnny Gobbs.
Someone spoiled that for me on Twitter when it was released digitally. You and I, we both wait for the disc because if you wait for the disc, you still get it digitally. You get it both. Mm-hmm. And so one of our listeners tweeted me and was like, "Oh, hey, have you watched Gotham by Gaslight yet? I lost it when they name dropped Johnny Gobbs." And I was like, "No, I haven't seen it yet." And he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like, well, then maybe wait for an answer before the spoiler. Maybe. Not that it really mattered, but it was a fun nod anyway.
First thing in my notes, I can't believe I skipped right over it.
Johnny Gobbs. And then the other part when Hugo Strange had American Express card and he said, "Don't leave home without it."
Oh.
No. Okay. Anyway, I thought the addition of the World's Fair was a really smart, a really smart inclusion from the sequel, because I love the idea of Gotham is dirty and grungy and corrupt and it's a problem, but here's what the beautiful, sparkling future of Gotham could be, and how it was all a lie. And that was something they say at the very end. One of the Robins says, it was phony anyway. Yeah, I really like just kind of the symbolic, the symbolism of the World's Fair and this pristine future that you never quite get to, and it being burnt down by the guy who was trying to make the future, to clean up Gotham for the future. He ends up burning down its future, and then it has to rise from the ashes. I thought that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
And then, you find out Gordon is the Ripper. You get the epic confrontation on the Ferris wheel, which great place for an epic confrontation at the end of a movie. Like, can't complain about that. The on fire Ferris wheel, kind of evocative of the on fire windmill of like Frankenstein.
Yeah, they mentioned that about like German expressionism or something was a heavy influence in this. I don't know about that, but
when you get, you get a great fight, and then you of course get Jack the Ripper / Gordon monologuing about everything, using the word whore a little too much. I was watching it, and he was like, "They're the worst whores of all," and Samantha's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, Batman. But when he finally gets handcuffed to the railing, and instead of being brought to justice, how he just slowly backs up into the fire and burns himself to death, that is brutal.
It is very brutal, even though he kind of vaporized really quickly, but I'm not going to get that nitpicky.
Well, for the kids watching.
My kids were watching, but that's a different story. My kids were watching because they weren't supposed to be. They were hiding around the corner.
Oh.
They were supposed to be doing their homework. And I'm more mad at them they weren't doing their homework and they were watching TV instead of they were watching this particular thing. But anyway,
right.
Not important. Gordon thing, the Ferris wheel sequence. Oh yeah. I was going to say we have to remember that the human body can take up to 35 miles an hour of speed.
Yeah.
I don't know why I got a chuckle out of that the first time I watched it.
We learned that.
I thought it was just really cool looking how it was done and how they went from car to car on the Ferris wheel. Just everything that was done in the action sequences I thought was clever and looked really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would
crashing
agree with
through
you.
the windows and roof to roof. It was exhilarating. It was like almost like a high adventure kind of a thing that you'd expect to see in the likes of a Pirates of the Caribbean film or something like that. Something really big and grand along those lines.
Exactly. I completely agree. I love that. I love the big epic Ferris wheel. You've got the great action sequence on the blimp,
which I also think would be reminiscent a little bit of Rocketeer.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I love that. And then again, once you find out, like they set up the blimp early on that it is the police blimp, and then you find out later that it's Gordon, so it explains why Jack the Ripper was so comfortable with the blimp.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Like the action sequences were really strong. They were really inventive. They were really entertaining. And I noticed that a couple times of like just the fighting. I'm like, man, this is a really good fight for an animated movie.
And even when the blimp sequence started and he just unceremoniously throws that guy out and he face plants on the ground in front of Batman.
Oh yeah, I know. The other thing was the impromptu bat signal.
Oh yes.
I thought that was awesome.
That was really great. And the fact that it was just sloppy enough that it made sense because if she took the time to actually paint a perfect outline of a bat, I would have been like, oh, okay.
Right.
I thought it was really well handled how they did that. And the fact that she used the light to blind him and back him off and then, cranked it up to the sky as the signal. Yeah. Very, very well done all around there.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was really clever. And again, once she's drugged, I figured, she's going to pass out. Then Batman's got to come save her. But she keeps fighting. She is drugged up. She is like, she's like Courtney Love on a bender, and she keeps on fighting. She doesn't give in, and I loved that about her. I was like, yeah, you go, Selena. Go on, girl.
I dare say I would go so far as to, yeah, I'm going to say it. I think she is the runaway favorite of the film.
No, I agree with you. I mean, of course, Batman is awesome. He'd be even more awesome if he didn't have that jaw. But Selena was just a stroke of genius, and the way they made her work in this story, I thought was just perfect.
Definitely. That might be one of my favorite renditions of Catwoman I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Any other really big moments that you're going to be sad that you didn't mention?
I mentioned that full moon silhouette fight scene, right? Because that was really freaking cool.
You did, but feel free.
The fact that again, I want to take just a second to acknowledge that the Ripper / Gordon was a mental equal and a physical equal to Batman in this, and that you don't get that often in the Bat villains. You get generally one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And the fact that he did pose the threat to him that he did, I just appreciated that. It just made it seem like Batman had a real challenge before him. Like, there's a lot of times where you watch a Batman thing or you read, and you always know he's going to come out on top. I mean, he's Batman, right? But there are some times when you're really comfortable about it, and there's sometimes when you're not. And this is, for me anyway, was one of those circumstances where I was not entirely comfortable with it. I was not confident in the fact that they killed so many other people that he wasn't going to get Selena or Alfred or somebody by the end of the film. You know, I was really on edge about a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just like the menace that this particular villain.
No, you're right. Like he was a real threat. And even when you find out his identity, they set it up well enough that you buy him as a credible threat. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, why don't we give those closing thoughts, and we'll give a letter grade as we usually do. Jamie?
I would recommend this, as long as you're not going into it thinking you're going to get a true adaptation of the source material. Think of this as a reimagining of the source material, because that's really what it is. There's, as Andy mentioned, not a lot in common other than the fact that just a couple of plot points with who the villain is and Bruce being framed for it. I mean, that's pretty much it, where it stops. Selena's great. Again, as we just said, she's my favorite character in the entire thing, which for me to say Catwoman's my favorite character and something, they did it right. I thought it was well done overall. I wouldn't mind seeing more like this going forward. It's a solid movie. I could see myself watching it again. I don't know if it's going to make any kind of a regular rotation for me, but I was fond enough of it that I would certainly sit down and watch it again with not a lot of objection. For me, it's a B+.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I enjoyed that they went off... they went a little off script and did their own thing with it. I thought that was really cool. As I said at the very beginning, this is how you flesh out something that doesn't immediately translate to full length. Like, this is a good way of doing it. And I think that many of the additions they made were really good ones. And I think that it still felt very cohesive. It didn't feel like they took the graphic novel and just grafted a couple pieces onto it to make it longer. It feels like one cohesive piece, and I really like that about it. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think the action was good. I loved this random, different, unique version of Batman and his mythos and his world, and I like how Gotham looks at the turn of the last century, and I like seeing how some of these things get reimagined. I liked all of that. So yeah, overall, I had a good time with it. Again, I had a couple little nitpicks, a couple little story things that I think could have been ironed out or fleshed out a little bit better, or just made a little clearer. And again, if they had nailed the animation, especially on Batman, this would have been an A. But the animation really did detract from my enjoyment of it. And so, but I honestly, I still kind of land where you did, Jamie. I'm still at around a B or a B+. And talking through it with you, and again, seeing it a second time, really made me appreciate it even more. So yeah, I'm going to go with a B+ because, I'm an easy grader.
What would Sam give it for a grade? We know how tough she is.
She watched literally 5 minutes of it, and she hated the song Selena sang. So,
that's one thing I wanted to mention. I don't think the song was great, but I still think that was better than any musical number in Batman and Harley Quinn.
No, I still like "Don't Put Your Love Out on Me, Honey."
You realize I'll be able to reach you in a few days, right?
I fear nothing. All I know, Sam was like, "What is this song?" I'm like, "Oh, don't worry about it."
The song came on and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Jennifer Carpenter singing!" And then in the credits, I think it was Greg Griffin sang that. Did I read that?
Who also sang, I think, as Black Canary on Brave and the Bold. I think that was her.
She voiced one of the characters too, but offhand, I don't remember which one it was.
In this one, you mean?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. She probably did. She's one of those names that pops up a lot. But yeah, we both gave it a B+, so we both enjoyed it. So yeah, check it out. Batman Gotham by Gaslight. As I said earlier, I would happily watch a sequel, especially if they continue to do their own thing with it. I'd like to see their sequel more than I would like to see an adaptation of, what was it, The World of Tomorrow? Master of the Future?
Master of the Future.
Master of the Future. Yeah, so I'd much rather see whatever this was leading to. Give me a steampunk Batman and Robin. I'd be down for that. But yeah, it was a good time. We enjoyed it. So hopefully you guys dug it too. Now let's see what you guys have to say as we crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox.
Apparently you and Batman have a common enemy. That was with the Morning Mail.
All right, the Wayne Manor mailbox, Jamie, has been very full. It's been a while. So we'll do what we can today, but it's all you can do. We'll do the best we can. This comes from Thomas Rice. It says, "Hey, Andy and Jamie, I'm a huge fan of the show, and I've been a Bat fan for as long as I can remember, starting with the animated series and the Tim Burton films. However, throughout my Bat fandom, the one form of media I found difficult to get into is comics, because of the overwhelming amount of choices that are available. Do you have any suggestions on where a huge Bat fan new to comics can start without feeling way behind on everything? Thanks, and keep up the good work." So, of course, Thomas, first of all, thank you for the message. There are all the iconic stories if you just wanted to do that, like Gotham by Gaslight, like Batman Year One, like The Dark Knight Returns, like Court of Owls, all those. But if you want to jump into like an ongoing series, I'd say find the part one of an arc on the main Bat book or on the Detective Comics book, and just jump in. The arcs are much shorter now. They're usually only like maybe 4 or 5 issues a piece. So if you wait for a new arc to start, just pick it up. And yeah, I would say pick up Detective before Batman. I know Jamie and I are the same on that.
Definitely.
But, you know, if you want to just pick up Batman itself, you can do that too. But yeah, I think the best way is to just jump in. Especially if you're a Batman fan, those 2 books I think you can't really go wrong with. But yeah, there's so many iconic stories from the past that we've mentioned many times on the show that you can go back if you want to do it that way too. Jamie, what do you think?
My suggested jump on points, if you want to get into like real continuity instead of jumping in like the arcs like Andy recommended, which is a really good suggestion, by the way. Either start with the New 52 run or start with the Rebirth run.
There you go. Yeah, completely agree. Good luck, Thomas. Let us know how that goes. Next message here is from Elder Murray. It says, "Hello, this is my first time writing, and I want to say thank you for all you do for Batman fans around the world. My question is, what if Marlon Brando, Dustin Hoffman, Dudley Moore, Christopher Lloyd, or Michael J. Fox played the Penguin, and Lorraine Bracco, Diane Keaton, Meryl Streep, Susan Sarandon, Cher, Ellen Barkin, Brooke Shields, Demi Moore, and Raquel Welch played Catwoman in Batman Returns? They were all rumored for those roles." Elder, thank you for the message. Some of these I'd heard before. Some of these I hadn't. Jamie, any of these names jumped out to you as interesting ones for Penguin or Catwoman?
Michael J. Fox's Penguin, that's something.
Yeah, that's hard to believe.
That's something.
I find that, yeah. I feel like he was rumored for Robin at a certain point.
That sounds right.
But Penguin seems odd.
Well, we are talking about Burton here, so.
Yeah, I think Dustin Hoffman could have been a great Penguin. I kind of
You need
dig
a
that.
prosthetic nose.
Well, of course, but DeVito had one.
No, I say you wouldn't have needed.
Oh, you wouldn't. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. But he already played Mumbles, so he can't play the Penguin.
Yeah, there's never any crossover in these movies or anything.
No, you do one comic book role, and that's it. You're done.
Chris Evans likes that comment.
So does Ryan Reynolds. Okay, so for me, that was the Penguin one that I was like, oh, Dustin Hoffman actually could have been really good. Jamie, any other of these other ones that jumped out at you?
I like the sound of Raquel Welch and Catwoman. That appeals to me.
I do too, but
Maybe
I feel
for
like
the wrong reasons. But
I feel like in '92 she was already pretty old.
boy, have you seen her today?
She looks amazing. I just don't. I mean, maybe I'm thinking she's older than she is, but I just feel like she was already old in the '90s.
I'm gonna guess she's probably in her mid 70s, which means she probably would have been pushing 50 at the time of the Batman Returns.
So, okay.
So when she was 50, she looked better than most 25-year-olds. So she still looked better than most 35-year-olds.
Yeah, of these Catwoman choices, none of them, honestly, I don't love any of them. I know Cher. I do remember the Cher rumors a lot, and I like Cher fine. I don't think she's a great actress. I liked Demi Moore for Poison Ivy, but I think she could have been a good Catwoman back in the day too.
I can't get Raquel Welch out of my head now. Thanks a lot. You've killed my night.
All right, well, you'll be in your bunk. Anyway, thank you for the message. Next message here is from Damian Magnuson. It says, hey, Andy and Jamie, I thought of something mind-blowing. What if the controversial random Superman cell phone video at the beginning of Justice League was Billy Batson? Shazam rumors are flying. I've heard that Superman will be Billy Batson's idol, and he may even make an appearance in the movie. Maybe it was a last-minute throw-in by the studio for the Shazam movie to use somehow. Thanks for your time and for the great show. Long-time listener, Damian Magnuson. Jamie, what do you think?
I've heard that somewhere before. I don't remember if it was from Damian specifically or somewhere else, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun. That's all I got. It'd be kind of fun, but I'm not holding my breath for it. But it could be fun.
It would be an easy retcon if they decided to do it, but I'm not sure that was their intention going in.
Right. But I do like the idea of Superman being Billy Batson's idol in Shazam, which is now in production. Woo!
That bastard Zachary Levi. Did you see what he tweeted out the other day of, hey, I'm wearing my full Shazam
His
costume
outfit
underneath
looks
this.
great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He looks amazing, like right off the page. It's my iPhone wallpaper. It's just Zachary Levi in a black overcoat. All right, next message here is from Craig Flanagan. It says, hey guys, quick question, long comment. Says the whole CW, DCEU character confusion discussion has been brought up several times. The idea is nothing new. Have you heard of the Bat embargo? Apparently, in an attempt not to confuse children, it was official policy to not have Batman. To not Batman allow characters. I think it's supposed to be to not allow Batman characters to appear in multiple movies or TV shows, which then extended to other characters. Ever wonder why the Justice League series had the guy who looked exactly like Black Manta and wasn't called Black Manta, and Aquaman himself just disappeared? Mercy Reef pilot. Or why on The Batman, Batgirl was Batman's first sidekick because Robin was on Teen Titans. The examples are numerous, but considering Superman and Lex Luthor appeared on Justice League and Smallville at the same time, Joker in The Batman and The Dark Knight at the same time, and Batman in, well, just about everything, this ban clearly made no sense. Next time someone wants to blame DC's current woes on Zack Snyder, please share this nonsense with them. It's gone on before and will continue after. All the best. The Flan in CT. Yeah, we've talked about this before, about how there are weird rules that, like, they're rules only when convenient, but if they want to break the rules, they can do it, and it's very inconsistent. I gotta tell you, when I watched The Batman and Batgirl showed up before Robin, I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice. And it was a listener who goes, oh, that's because Robin was on Teen Titans. They couldn't use him. And I was like, what? That's bizarre. But yeah, Weird rules. Jamie?
I don't know what to make out any of that. That's weird. All I can tell you is there's a Superman on a movie screen and a Superman on a TV screen and a Flash on a movie screen and a Flash on a TV screen. But I can't get Batman on a TV screen unless it's animated form. That's mind-boggling to me that somebody hasn't truly, and I don't count Gotham. So don't at me about that.
I know. We talked about it before. It's dumb. Let it go. WB, DC, whoever's making these mandates, let it go. Next message here is from Jeremy Lloyd.
Who?
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't like the sound of him. He says, "Hey, Bat fans, having recently revisited Batman Forever since they were all streaming on Netflix. Settle down, Brendan. I couldn't help but be," I didn't say settled, he said it. "I couldn't help but be reminded of how the character of the Riddler is still to this day very much in the vein of Carrey's version. Even on Gotham, the actor playing Edward Nygma reminds me of Carrey in a lot of ways. So my question for our dynamic duo, am I alone in thinking the character of the Riddler is in desperate need of a revamp in live action? Do you think we'll get a different version of the character like we've seen the Joker in Batman movies, or will Carrey's version always be the status quo for the character?" Jeremy, I got a lot to say about this. Is the Riddler in desperate need of a revamp in live action? Yes, absolutely. I've been saying it for 20 damn years now. But I will disagree. I don't think that Edward Nygma in Gotham is anything like Jim Carrey. And you've got to remember that Carrey's version was very much trying to be Frank Gorshin. So I think that, Carrey only knew Frank Gorshin, and so he just did his Jim Carrey Ace Ventura version of that. But I do think that still kind of looms large on the character as a whole. I think Gotham, for me, is I don't want to say my favorite because I do love Frank Gorshin, but the Riddler on Gotham, I think, is great. I love him. And then the Riddler on Batman the Animated Series was very much not the silly, giggly Frank Gorshin version either. So we've seen variation throughout the years, but is it time to bring that to the big screen? Absolutely. Jamie?
I'm texting Matt Reeves right now and letting him know what you said.
Okay, great. Tell him I say hi. I hope all is well. Say hi to the twins. That's it? Nothing else to add?
No. I'm trying to keep it brief.
All right, good. This is from Grant Ingram. This next one. "Hey, Andy and Jamie. Started listening to your show about 3 months ago. I've got to say, it's quickly become the highlight of my week, and I've gone back and listened to some of the past episodes. I heard you guys talking about The Dark Knight Returns, and I picked it up. My question is, have you all read the rest of the series, Dark Knight Strikes Again and Dark Knight Master Race? And if you have, what were your thoughts on them? Also, what are some good Joker stories to pick up? Thank you very much for your time. Your fellow Bat fan, Grant Ingram." Jamie, as our resident Dark Knight Returns super fan.
Dark Knight Strikes Again, I think I get why people don't like it. I'm not one of the people who don't like it. I don't love it. I enjoy it for what I think it is, which is a really satirical take on the characters and the story that goes with it. I think The Master Race was an excellent story. I have not yet revisited that. I read each of the single issues as they came out, along with the many books that were attached to them. I need to get it in the combined format and read it all beginning to end, because there were so many gaps in between there that it might have made it a little bit wonky for me, especially trying to remember it now some months after it's been wrapped up. There's one piece of lore that is attached to this Dark Knight Returns universe that I think has been grossly overlooked, and that is a one-shot book called Dark Knight: The Last Crusade. That is a superb addition to the mythos of that entire story, and I highly recommend that anybody who has not yet done so pick it up and read it, because it's very, very good.
Sweet. Dark Knight Strikes Again, I did not like. Dark Knight 3, The Master Race, I thought was pretty good, although I still want to read it all in one sitting because it was so delayed and spaced out that it's all kind of fuzzy in my head. So I'd like to sit it down and enjoy it in one sitting and see how it all comes together. As for Joker stories, Batman #1, which are the first Joker stories, of course, The Killing Joke, Joker by Brian Azzarello, is a graphic novel that's really good. Death of the Family, Death in the Family. Those are good ones too. And yeah, there you go. That's a good start for you. All right, we'll do one last one. This is about Gotham by Gaslight. It's from CJ Higgins. It says, "Hey, Bat fans, I recently watched Gotham by Gaslight. I really enjoyed it and had fun with the movie. I never read the original comic, so I don't know how much of it is different and how much is the same after doing some research. I wasn't a big fan of the twist ending, though. Also, I thought that was Zatanna on the cover and not Selena Kyle. The three orphan boys seemed like Dick, Jason, and Todd. Maybe Tim, all at the same time. A Bat Family team up of Batman, Catwoman, Alfred, and the three Robins would be awesome. What do you guys think? Thank you for taking my question." Jamie?
Is he talking for like a sequel, seeing them all combined?
I think. That's my guess.
I'd watch that. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
of course, I'm still sitting here waiting on my sequel to Gods and Monsters and haven't gotten it yet, so I don't know how good it's going to be, but...
I know. Well, hopefully enough people bought Gotham by Gaslight, because yes, as I said earlier, that is what I want to see. I want to see them push all these other characters further, and so I can see more steampunky versions of those. So I am all for it. But thank you for the message, and thank you to everybody who sent us an email. Send those, if you've got any, to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Please and thank you. The other thing I'll ask you to do is, if you haven't done it already, please leave us an iTunes review. It's quick, it's easy, it's free, and we appreciate it ever so much. So, because some of you did take time out of your very busy lives to leave us reviews, the least we can do is read them. So here's a couple. This one here is from Idaho Superhero Geek. It says, "Wonderful DC podcast." It says, "I love this podcast. I love DC Comics. I often try to talk about them with my friends and family who sometimes get tired of hearing about it. I feel like by listening to this podcast, I finally found a group of people with similar interests. Andy and the co-hosts do a great job talking at a pace that's pleasant to listen to. You can also tell that these people are really fans of DC Comics. I've tried several other DC podcasts, but this is one of the 2 DC podcasts I keep coming back to. If you're a fan of Batman or DC Comics, this is a must listen." Thank you, Idaho Superhero Geek. One of 2, Jamie. So we just got to find out who that other one is and wipe them out. Slit their throats like Jack the Ripper, and then there'll be one, and we'll get the quickening. There can be only one.
Wow, you just abridged yourself from Batman Gotham by Gaslight to Highlander in one sentence. Yeah. That's pretty slick.
Welcome to my brain. It's real fun in here. Anyway, thank you, Idaho Superhero Geek. This next one is from Darren Strength Coach. It says, "The podcast Bat fans deserve." It says, "Holy BatCast is a fun, positive spin on all things Batman. They're very relatable and give me something great to listen to while I'm out training, mowing, lifting weights, or just meal prepping in the kitchen. Thanks, guys, for giving a fellow geek a bright spot in his week." Thanks, Darren. And keep being a badass. Sounds like you're a real life Batman. So go crack some heads in our name.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one last one. This is from Batfan217. It says, "Best podcast ever." It says, "I have been a listener for years now, and I can honestly..." Okay, I'll just stop. Jamie, it's been years. We've been doing this for years.
I couldn't help but notice in my Facebook memories the other day that it did appear to be the 4th anniversary, I believe, of the show.
Oh my God, what is going on? That doesn't even make sense. Okay. It says, "I've been a listener for years now, and I can honestly say this is hands down the best podcast on Batman. Being a Batman collector for over 30 years, I've decided to start a podcast on Batman to share my thoughts, views, and knowledge of the Cape Crusader. Started doing some research in podcasting, and after listening to Andy and Jamie on this show, I realized no need in starting one, as the best podcast possible was already available. Thank you both for bringing me Bat joy every week." Wow. We don't mean to dissuade you from doing your own show.
No, by all means, every voice matters out there. I mean,
yeah,
there's half a dozen Batman podcasts I listen to, and not one of them seems to ever say the same thing. I mean, they might agree on some points, but every voice brings out a little bit differently about it. So if you got something to say, get out there and say it.
Yeah, just don't call it BatCast is my only request.
He's very sensitive about that.
Get your own name. Call it whatever you want. No, well, first of all, it's a very nice compliment. Thank you for saying that. But yeah, do your show. Have fun. You know, none of us are getting rich on this, so it's all good. There's always room for one more, but
there's plenty
our
of
pleasure.
that fat podcast money out there for us all.
Yeah, so much podcast money.
Podcast money is like the Bitcoin of the future.
Right. Anyway, thank you guys for leaving those reviews. If you have not left a review and you want to help us out, again, it's the quickest thing you can do. So thank you for doing that. And if you haven't done it yet, now's the time, and we will read it on the next show. But Jamie, it's good to have you back and on the mend. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. It's good to be feeling a little bit better, and hopefully I continue to feel better because I still kind of feel like crap.
I know. Get some rest. Because we've got big plans this weekend.
That's true.
Me and Jamie are going to hang out in person this weekend.
Yeah, but we're going to see Marvel's Batman.
That's right. We're going to see the discount Batman. We're going to see, like, when Marvel was like, God, Batman is so cool. We wish we had a Batman. What's like a bat? It's like a cat. Like, what about like a panther? So, like, we're seeing, like, if Batman is Coke, we're seeing Pepsi this weekend.
I hope you have this published in time for me to play that for Leroy. I really do.
And yeah, Leroy, bring it. Bring it. We for the second time in history, we're going to hang out in person.
Woohoo.
Yeah, so you better get some rest.
I have to, because I've got a feeling you guys are going to kill my liver.
I won't. I'm the lightweight.
No.
Two
Roman
Bud
will.
Lights and I'm gone.
Roman will be like, here, try this.
But yeah, anyway, Jamie, if the folks aren't following you, where can they do that?
You can find me on Twitter at BatRaider3960, or I usually am the one that runs the Twitter for the Please Rewind show. You can find that at RewindRF4RM.
There you go. Please do that. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you guys out there for downloading the show. As always, please do subscribe to the show. If you're not going to write a review, the other best way to help us is to subscribe. You help us, and then you help yourself because you never miss a show. Everybody wins. Also, as Michael Keaton's Batman says, I want you to tell all your friends about me. So tell all your fellow Bat fans to check out Holy BatCast. We have a good time, and we like more friends. Please visit holybatcast.com. Please follow us all over social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, Holy BatCast. And that'll do it for this episode. Thanks as always for joining. Thanks for being part of our Bat family. On behalf of Jamie, I've been your host, Andy DiGenova. We'll see you next time. You know where. Same Bat time, same Bat channel. Of course. See you then.
Holy BatCast is brought to you by real fans for real movies. Remember, the thoughts and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone, and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
This Ripper is far worse than the lunatic you're searching for. He's a skilled hunter, and he's just getting started.
You ought to have breakfast with Hugo Strange up at Arkham Asylum. You can compare useless theories. I prefer facts.
I ran into your Ripper earlier this evening, approximately 6 foot 3 inches, 250 pounds, left-handed. Good fighter. Trained. Not just a brawler.
You didn't happen to see his face, did you?